The people who effortlessly achieve success after success know something that the rest of us are missing. It's not what you think, and it's definitely not what they teach in business schools or self-help seminars. Stay with me, because this changes everything. Most people believe that winners are born with special talents, superior intelligence, or extraordinary willpower that allows them to outperform everyone else. They imagine that successful people have some kind of genetic advantage or were raised in perfect circumstances that naturally led to their achievements. But this belief is not only wrong, it's the very thing that keeps most people from developing a winner's mindset themselves. Right now, you might be thinking that winners are fundamentally different from you. You've probably noticed how they seem to handle pressure differently, make decisions with confidence, and bounce back from setbacks faster than seems humanly possible. You might have tried to copy their strategies, read their books, or follow their advice, only to find that what works for them doesn't seem to work for you. What I'm about to reveal will completely transform your understanding of what it means to think like a winner. You'll discover that winners aren't born, they're made through a specific way of processing reality that anyone can learn. You'll learn that the difference between winners and everyone else isn't talent, luck, or circumstances. It's a particular set of mental patterns that shape how they interpret events, make decisions, and respond to challenges. This isn't about positive thinking, visualization, or pumping yourself up with motivational mantras. It's about understanding the actual cognitive architecture that creates consistent success and learning to install these same mental patterns in your own mind. When you think like a winner, you don't just achieve better results. You become someone for whom success feels natural, inevitable, and sustainable. Have you noticed how winners seem to operate from a completely different reality than most people, as if they're playing by different rules or seeing opportunities that others can't perceive? There's something happening beneath the surface that most of us miss because we're focused on their external behaviors rather than understanding the internal mental frameworks that drive those behaviors. Picture this. Two people face the same challenging situation. Let's say they both get laid off from their jobs during economic uncertainty. The first person immediately spirals into worry about finances, spends weeks feeling sorry for themselves, and eventually settles for the first mediocre job offer they receive. The second person sees the layoff as an opportunity to finally pursue that business idea they've been considering, uses the transition period to develop new skills, and emerges 6 months later in a better position than before. What creates this dramatic difference in response? Most people would say it's personality, optimism, or risk tolerance. But these surface explanations miss the deeper cognitive patterns that actually drive winner-level thinking. The difference lies in how each person's mind automatically processes the meaning of events, evaluates options, and constructs their sense of what's possible. This isn't about positive thinking, visualization, or pumping yourself up with motivational mantras. It's about understanding the actual cognitive architecture that creates consistent success and learning to install these same mental patterns in your own mind. When you think like a winner, you don't just achieve better results, you become someone for whom success feels natural, inevitable, and sustainable. Winners have developed what we might call reality construction patterns that fundamentally differ from how most people interpret their circumstances. When faced with a challenge, their minds automatically scan for opportunities, resources, and potential advantages, rather than focusing primarily on problems, limitations, and reasons why things won't work. This isn't forced positive thinking. It's an unconscious mental habit that shapes their entire perception of reality. This difference in perception creates a cascade of different choices, actions, and outcomes that compound over time. While most people are busy managing problems, winners are busy leveraging possibilities. While others are focused on avoiding failure, winners are focused on creating value. While the majority operates from scarcity and competition, winners operate from abundance and innovation. The key insight is that winners don't see a different reality, they process the same reality through different mental filters. These filters determine what information they pay attention to, how they interpret that information, and what range of responses they consider available. Over time, these different processing patterns lead to dramatically different life experiences. Think about how a master chess player sees the board differently than a beginner. They're looking at the same pieces in the same positions, but the master sees patterns, possibilities, and strategic implications that are completely invisible to the novice. Similarly, winners have developed mental pattern recognition that allows them to see strategic possibilities in situations where others see only problems or randomness. This winner's way of thinking isn't mysterious or supernatural, it's learnable. Just as you can develop chess pattern recognition through study and practice, you can develop the mental patterns that create consistent success. The difference is that most people have never been taught that these patterns exist, much less how to develop them. Winners also have a fundamentally different relationship with failure and setbacks. While most people interpret failure as evidence of their limitations or as confirmation that they should quit, winners interpret failure as information about what doesn't work and guidance toward what might work better. This difference in interpretation allows them to extract value from experiences that would devastate others. Perhaps most importantly, winners have developed what psychologists call internal locus of control. They believe that their choices and actions are the primary determinants of their outcomes. This isn't naive optimism that ignores external factors, but rather a focus on the elements they can influence rather than the elements they can't control. This mental orientation keeps their energy focused on productive action rather than being drained by worry about circumstances beyond their influence. When you understand that thinking like a winner is about installing specific mental processing patterns rather than changing your personality or circumstances, everything changes. You realize that you don't need to be born different, raised differently, or given special opportunities. You simply need to learn how winners think and practice those thinking patterns until they become automatic. Let me tell you about a master strategist in ancient China who was known throughout the empire for his ability to achieve victory in seemingly impossible situations. Students would come from distant provinces to learn his secrets, expecting to discover advanced military tactics or sophisticated battle strategies. But what they learned was far more profound than any technique. One day, a young general approached the master after suffering a devastating defeat. "Master," he said, "my army was larger, my soldiers were well-trained, and my equipment was superior. Yet I was completely outmaneuvered by an enemy force half my size. What did I do wrong?" The master invited the young general to join him in his garden, where they sat beside a small stream that flowed around various obstacles, rocks, fallen branches, and changes in elevation. "Tell me," the master said, "what do you see when you look at this water?" "I see a stream flowing toward the river," the young general replied, puzzled by the question. "Look more carefully," the master urged. "What happens when the water encounters obstacles?" As they watched, the general noticed that the water never fought against the obstacles it encountered. When it met a large rock, it flowed around it. When the path became narrow, it flowed faster. When it reached a steep drop, it cascaded over it with tremendous force. When the terrain flattened, it spread wide and moved gently. "The water doesn't see obstacles," the master explained. "It sees the path. It doesn't resist what it cannot change. It adapts to what is and finds the most efficient way forward. Most importantly, it never loses sight of its destination." Over the following months, the master taught the young general to apply this water-like thinking to strategic challenges. Instead of focusing on what was blocking his path, the general learned to focus on what paths were available. Instead of lamenting what resources he lacked, he learned to maximize the resources he possessed. Instead of trying to force outcomes through strength alone, he learned to achieve objectives through intelligent adaptation. The greatest generals don't win through superior force. They win through superior perception. They see possibilities where others see problems. They find advantages where others see disadvantages. They create opportunities where others see obstacles. The young general began to understand that winning wasn't primarily about external capabilities. It was about internal frameworks for processing challenges. The master had developed the ability to look at any situation and automatically see strategic possibilities that others missed. This wasn't magical insight, but rather the result of training his mind to ask different questions and notice different patterns. When most people encounter difficulty, the master explained, they ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Or, "How can I avoid this?" But winners ask, "How can I use this?" and "What opportunity does this create?" This difference in questioning leads to entirely different conclusions and actions. The master's final lesson was the most profound. True victory doesn't come from defeating others. It comes from becoming undefeatable. When your mind is like water, flowing around obstacles and adapting to any terrain while never losing sight of your destination, you become invincible not because nothing can stop you, but because nothing can divert you from finding a way forward. Years later, the former student had become a master himself, renowned for achieving victory through wisdom rather than force. When students asked them for the secret to thinking like a winner, he would share what he had learned. That winning is not about having superior resources or avoiding all obstacles, but about developing a mind that automatically transforms any challenge into a strategic advantage. This ancient wisdom reveals the timeless truth about winners' thinking. It's not about the external circumstances you face, but about the internal frameworks you use to process those circumstances. Winners have learned to think like water, adaptable, persistent, and always moving toward their objectives regardless of what obstacles appear in their path. Here's what transforms everything about thinking like a winner. Winners don't try to avoid problems. They become experts at converting problems into advantages. Most people approach success like they're trying to navigate a minefield, carefully avoiding potential problems and hoping to reach their destination without encountering too many obstacles. They invest enormous energy in risk management, contingency planning, and trying to control variables that are often beyond their control. But this defensive approach to success is exactly what prevents them from developing a winner's mindset. Let me tell you about Elena, a software engineer who had always been technically competent, but consistently passed over for leadership roles and breakthrough opportunities. For years, she approached her career like most people approach success, trying to avoid mistakes, meet expectations, and gradually climb the corporate ladder through steady, safe performance. Elena's transformation began when she was assigned to a project that everyone knew was doomed to failure. The previous team had quit, the deadline was impossible, and the client was notoriously difficult. Instead of seeing this as career suicide, Elena recognized something that would change her entire approach to thinking. This impossible project was actually the perfect opportunity to demonstrate capabilities that would never be visible in normal circumstances. While her colleagues focused on all the reasons the project would fail, Elena focused on what success would mean for her reputation and career trajectory. While others worried about the blame they might receive for failure, Elena concentrated on the credit she would receive for any progress. While the previous team had tried to manage the client's unrealistic expectations, Elena learned to channel the client's intensity into clearer requirements and more decisive decision-making. The project didn't become easy, but Elena's approach to it was revolutionary. Instead of trying to avoid the problems inherent in the situation, she became expert at using each problem as a catalyst for innovative solutions. When the timeline was compressed, she developed more efficient development processes. When requirements were unclear, she created better communication systems. When resources were limited, she built stronger partnerships with other teams. By the end of the project, Elena had not only delivered something everyone thought was impossible, but she had also established herself as someone who could thrive in challenging circumstances that would overwhelm others. The failed project became the launching pad for her career because she had learned to think like a winner. This story illustrates the revolutionary insight about winners' thinking. Winners have developed the mental capacity to extract advantage from any situation, regardless of how challenging or unfavorable it initially appears. They don't waste energy trying to avoid difficulties. They invest that energy in becoming the kind of person who can transform difficulties into opportunities. This shift in thinking is profound because it changes your relationship with uncertainty, challenge, and setback from defensive to offensive. Instead of seeing problems as threats to be avoided, you begin seeing them as raw material to be transformed. Instead of viewing obstacles as evidence that you're on the wrong path, you see them as indicators that you're in territory where most of your competition won't venture. Winners understand something that most people never discover. The biggest opportunities often come disguised as problems that everyone else is trying to avoid. While the majority seeks comfort and predictability, winners seek challenge and possibility. While others are retreating from difficulty, winners are advancing toward it because they know that's where the greatest potential for growth and advantage exists. This doesn't mean winners are reckless or that they enjoy suffering. It means they've developed the mental frameworks necessary to see strategic possibilities in situations that would paralyze others with fear or overwhelm. They've trained their minds to automatically ask, "How can I use this?" rather than, "How can I avoid this?" The revolutionary aspect of this insight is that it makes winners largely immune to external circumstances. When your primary skill is converting problems into advantages, it doesn't matter what problems you encounter, because each one becomes another opportunity to demonstrate and develop your capabilities. You become less dependent on having perfect conditions and more skilled at creating perfect responses to whatever conditions arise. This mental approach also creates what psychologists call post-traumatic growth, the phenomenon where people become stronger, wiser, and more capable as a result of navigating challenging experiences. Winners don't just recover from setbacks, they use setbacks as catalysts for reaching levels of capability they never would have achieved in comfortable circumstances. The insight reveals why traditional advice about positive thinking and visualization often fails to create lasting change. These approaches try to change your emotional relationship with success without changing your cognitive relationship with problems. But thinking like a winner isn't about feeling good about challenges. It's about developing the mental tools necessary to extract value from challenges regardless of how they feel. When you understand that winners are essentially problem conversion specialists, you realize that you don't need to wait for perfect circumstances to begin winning. You can start practicing winners thinking immediately by changing how you process whatever challenges are currently in your life. Every problem becomes a training opportunity to develop the mental patterns that create consistent success. Foundation 1. Recognition. The first foundation of thinking like a winner is developing the ability to recognize opportunity within challenge, advantage within adversity, and possibility within problems. This isn't about positive thinking or denial of difficulties, but about training your perception to automatically scan for strategic possibilities that others miss.
Most people's minds are trained to focus primarily on threats, problems, and reasons why things won't work. This threat detection system served our ancestors well in dangerous environments, but it often sabotages success in modern contexts, where the biggest risks come from missed opportunities rather than physical dangers. Winners have consciously retrained their perception to automatically look for what's working, what's possible, and what can be leveraged in any situation. When they encounter a setback, their minds immediately begin scanning for hidden advantages. When they face a problem, they automatically search for the opportunity embedded within it. When they see obstacles, they instinctively look for paths around, over, or through them. This recognition ability develops through deliberate practice of asking different questions when challenges arise. Instead of "why me?" or "how do I avoid this?", winners ask, "what can I learn from this? How might this redirect me towards something better? And what unique capabilities will I develop by navigating this successfully?" The practice involves regularly examining challenging situations from multiple perspectives to identify elements that could become advantages. That job rejection might be protecting you from a company that's about to downsize. That failed relationship might be freeing you to find someone more compatible. That business setback might be revealing weaknesses that, once addressed, will make you much stronger. Recognition also includes identifying your unique combination of strengths, experiences, and perspectives that position you to create value in ways that others can't replicate. Winners understand that sustainable success comes not from competing in areas where you're average, but from recognizing and leveraging areas where you're exceptional. As this foundation develops, you'll notice that your mind automatically begins looking for the strategic possibilities in whatever situation you're facing. This doesn't eliminate challenges, but it ensures that you're extracting maximum value from every experience, rather than just enduring difficulties. Foundation 2. Leverage. The second foundation involves learning to maximize the impact of your efforts by finding the points of highest leverage in any situation. Winners understand that success isn't about working harder than everyone else, but about working more strategically than everyone else. Leverage means identifying the actions that produce disproportionate results, the 20% of efforts that generate 80% of outcomes. Winners are constantly looking for these high-leverage opportunities and focusing their energy on activities that create exponential rather than linear returns. This foundation requires developing the ability to think systemically rather than just tactically. Instead of focusing only on immediate tasks, winners consider how each action fits into larger patterns and systems. They ask questions like, what would make everything else easier? And what single change would have the biggest ripple effect? Leverage also involves understanding how to use other people's time, money, networks, and expertise to amplify your own capabilities. Winners are skilled at creating win-win situations where helping them achieve their goals also helps others achieve theirs. They understand that the biggest successes come from orchestrating collaborative efforts rather than trying to do everything themselves. Time leverage is particularly crucial. Winners understand that their time is their most valuable resource, so they're constantly looking for ways to eliminate, automate, or delegate activities that don't require their unique capabilities. They focus their personal time and energy on activities that only they can do or that they can do significantly better than others. This foundation also includes learning to leverage your past experiences, including failures and setbacks, as competitive advantages. Winners extract lessons, skills, and insights from every experience and then apply that accumulated wisdom to new challenges. They understand that their unique combination of experiences, when properly leveraged, becomes a form of competitive advantage that others can't replicate. As this foundation develops, you'll become increasingly skilled at identifying and acting on high-leverage opportunities while avoiding the low-leverage activities that consume most people's time and energy without producing proportional results. Foundation 3. Persistence. The third foundation is developing intelligent persistence, the ability to maintain consistent effort towards your objectives while remaining flexible about methods and timing. This isn't blind stubbornness, but rather the kind of strategic persistence that allows winners to outlast obstacles and capitalize on opportunities that others abandon too quickly. Most people either give up too easily when they encounter resistance, or they persist too rigidly with approaches that aren't working. Winners have learned to persist with their objectives while remaining adaptive about their methods. They understand the difference between persistence and stubbornness, between commitment and attachment. Intelligent persistence requires developing what researchers call grit, the combination of passion and perseverance for long-term goals. This means maintaining effort and interest despite failures, adversity, and plateaus in progress. Winners understand that meaningful achievements take time to develop, and that most people quit just before their efforts would have paid off. This foundation also involves learning to maintain motivation and momentum through the inevitable ups and downs of pursuing ambitious goals. Winners develop internal systems for maintaining enthusiasm during boring periods, confidence during setbacks, and clarity during confusion. They understand that success is often more about sustaining effort than about having brilliant insights. Persistence also means developing the ability to delay gratification in service of larger objectives. Winners are willing to make short-term sacrifices for long-term gains because they've developed the mental frameworks necessary to keep their long-term vision alive, even when immediate results are disappointing. Strategic persistence includes knowing when to pivot versus when to push through. Winners develop judgment about which obstacles indicate that a course correction is needed versus which obstacles are simply tests of commitment that need to be overcome. This discernment comes from experience and from maintaining connection to their deeper purposes. As this foundation develops, you'll become increasingly capable of maintaining consistent effort toward meaningful objectives while remaining responsive to feedback and changing circumstances. You'll develop the kind of strategic persistence that allows you to achieve goals that others abandon because they lack the patience and commitment to see them through. Foundation 4. Innovation. The fourth foundation involves developing the ability to create novel solutions, approaches, and opportunities, rather than just executing existing formulas. Winners understand that sustainable success in a changing world requires the capacity to innovate and adapt rather than just following proven paths. Innovation doesn't necessarily mean inventing entirely new products or revolutionary technologies. For most people, innovation means finding creative ways to solve problems, improve processes, or create value in ways that others haven't considered. It's about developing the mental flexibility to see new possibilities and the courage to experiment with approaches that haven't been tested.
This foundation requires cultivating curiosity and maintaining what researchers call beginner's mind, the ability to approach familiar situations with fresh perspectives. Winners regularly question assumptions that others take for granted and look for ways to improve or reimagine standard approaches. Innovation also involves developing comfort with experimentation and intelligent risk-taking. Winners understand that in rapidly changing environments, the biggest risk is often playing it too safe and becoming obsolete. They're willing to experiment with new approaches because they understand that innovation requires iterating through multiple versions to find what works. Creative problem solving is another crucial aspect of this foundation. Winners develop the ability to generate multiple potential solutions to any challenge rather than getting stuck on the first approach they consider. They understand that the best solutions often come from combining ideas from different domains or approaching problems from unexpected angles. This foundation also includes learning to innovate collaboratively by bringing together diverse perspectives and expertise. Winners understand that the most innovative solutions often emerge from teams that include people with different backgrounds, experiences, and ways of thinking. Innovation requires developing tolerance for uncertainty and ambiguity because creative solutions often emerge through processes that can't be completely controlled or predicted. Winners become comfortable working with incomplete information and making decisions while continuing to gather feedback and adjust their approach. As this foundation develops, you'll become increasingly skilled at generating creative solutions to challenges and at identifying opportunities to create value in ways that others haven't considered. You'll develop the kind of innovative thinking that allows you to stay ahead of changing circumstances rather than just responding to them.
System thinking. Regularly step back from tactical execution to consider the larger systems and patterns that your efforts are part of. Ask questions like, what would make everything else easier? And what single change would create the biggest positive ripple effects? Collaboration strategy. Identify people whose goals align with yours and look for ways to create mutual value. Develop relationships where helping others achieve their objectives also helps you achieve yours. Build networks of people who can amplify your capabilities through their time, expertise, or resources. Experience leverage. After every significant experience, especially challenging ones, extract the lessons, skills, and insights that you can apply to future situations.
Maintain a learning journal where you record what you've learned and how you can apply that knowledge going forward. Persistence cultivation. Purpose connection. Regularly reconnect with the deeper reasons why your goals matter to you. When motivation wanes, remind yourself of the values, purposes, and outcomes that originally inspired your commitment. This connection provides renewable energy for sustained effort. Progress tracking. Develop systems for measuring and celebrating incremental progress toward your objectives. Winners understand that most meaningful achievements happen gradually, so they become skilled at recognizing and celebrating small victories that others might overlook. Resilience building. Deliberately expose yourself to manageable challenges that require persistence to overcome. This builds your confidence in your ability to sustain effort through difficult periods and develops your tolerance for frustration and uncertainty. Strategic pivoting. Learn to distinguish between obstacles that indicate you need to adjust your approach versus obstacles that simply require more time and effort to overcome. Develop judgment about when to persist with current methods and when to experiment with new approaches. Innovation practice. Assumption questioning. Regularly examine the assumptions underlying your current approaches to goals and challenges. Ask questions like, what if the opposite were true? What would someone from a completely different background do in this situation? And what rules am I following that might not be necessary? Cross-domain learning. Study how problems similar to yours are solved in completely different fields or industries. Often, innovative solutions come from applying approaches from one domain to challenges in another domain where those approaches haven't been tried. Experimentation mindset. Develop comfort with testing new approaches on a small scale before committing significant resources. Create safe-to-fail experiments where you can test innovative ideas without risking major setbacks if they don't work as expected. Creative collaboration. Regularly engage with people who have different backgrounds, perspectives, and expertise than you do. Innovation often emerges from the intersection of different ways of thinking, so seek out collaborations that bring diverse viewpoints to your challenges. Integration practices. Weekly reviews. Conduct regular reviews of your thinking patterns and decision-making processes. Notice when you automatically applied winner-level thinking versus when you fell back into limited thinking patterns. Use this awareness to gradually strengthen your winner mindsets. Mentorship. Study the thinking patterns of people who have achieved what you want to achieve. This might involve reading their books, listening to interviews, or having direct conversations. Pay attention not just to what they did, but to how they thought about their challenges and opportunities. Teaching others. Share what you're learning about winners' thinking with others who are working towards similar goals. Teaching others helps solidify your own understanding and creates accountability for applying these principles consistently. Environmental design. Surround yourself with inputs that reinforce winner-level thinking patterns. This might include books, podcasts, relationships, and experiences that consistently model the kind of thinking you want to develop. As you consistently apply these principles and practices, you'll notice fundamental changes in how you approach challenges, opportunities, and life in general. The transformation isn't dramatic or sudden, but it's profound because it changes the foundation from which all your decisions and actions emerge. Natural confidence. One of the first changes you'll notice is the development of natural, unshakable confidence that comes from knowing you can handle whatever challenges arise. This isn't the brittle confidence that depends on everything going according to plan, but the deep confidence that emerges from knowing you can find a way to succeed regardless of circumstances. This confidence is based on evidence rather than wishful thinking. As you successfully apply winner's thinking to increasingly challenging situations, you build an internal track record of converting obstacles into advantages and finding paths forward when others see only dead ends. Strategic perspective. You'll develop the ability to see situations from a strategic rather than just emotional or immediate perspective. Instead of being overwhelmed by the details of current challenges, you'll naturally step back to see larger patterns, longer-term implications,
and systemic opportunities. This strategic perspective allows you to make decisions based on their long-term implications, rather than just their short-term comfort or convenience. You become less reactive to temporary setbacks and more focused on sustainable progress toward meaningful objectives. Opportunity magnetism. Perhaps most remarkably, you'll begin attracting more and better opportunities as you develop your capacity to recognize and leverage them. People are naturally drawn to those who think like winners because they want to be associated with success, and they trust that you will find ways to create mutual value. This isn't mystical attraction, but a practical result of being the kind of person who sees possibilities where others see problems and who has developed the skills necessary to convert those possibilities into realities. Sustainable success. The success that emerges from thinking like a winner is sustainable because it's based on developing capabilities rather than just achieving specific outcomes. Instead of reaching a goal and then struggling to maintain it, you develop the mental tools necessary to continue creating success in changing circumstances. This approach creates what researchers call learned optimism, the well-founded belief that you can influence outcomes through your choices and actions. This optimism is realistic rather than naive because it's based on developing real capabilities for navigating challenges and creating opportunities. Contribution capacity. As your own success becomes more natural and sustainable, you naturally develop greater capacity to help others achieve their goals. Winners understand that the best way to maintain their own success is to help others succeed as well, creating networks of mutual support and shared achievement.
This contribution isn't just altruistic, it's strategically intelligent because it creates environments where everyone's success supports everyone else's success. You become known as someone who helps others win, which attracts high-quality relationships and collaborative opportunities. Continuous growth. Perhaps most importantly, thinking like a winner creates a relationship with growth and challenge that makes success an ongoing process rather than a destination to reach. You become someone who is always developing new capabilities, taking on bigger challenges, and finding new ways to create value. This growth orientation prevents the stagnation that often follows achievement and ensures that your success continues expanding rather than plateauing. You develop what psychologists call a growth mindset that thrives on challenge and sees failures as opportunities to develop greater capabilities. Remember that thinking like a winner isn't about becoming arrogant, ruthless, or indifferent to others' well-being. True winners understand that sustainable success comes from creating value for others while achieving their own objectives. They win by making everyone better off, not by taking advantage of others. The transformation that comes from developing winners' thinking is ultimately about becoming the kind of person who naturally generates success through their way of processing reality, making decisions, and responding to challenges. You don't just achieve more, you become someone for whom achievement feels natural and inevitable. As you continue developing these mental patterns, remember that every challenge you encounter is an opportunity to practice thinking like a winner. Every setback is a chance to demonstrate your ability to find advantages in adversity. Every obstacle is training for your capacity to convert problems into opportunities. The goal isn't to eliminate all difficulties from your life, but to develop such robust mental frameworks that you can thrive regardless of what difficulties arise. When you think like a winner, you become less dependent on external circumstances and more skilled at creating the outcomes you want through intelligent action and strategic thinking. This is the ultimate freedom that comes from developing a winner's mindset. Not freedom from challenges, but freedom within challenges to consistently find paths forward that others can't see. You become someone who doesn't just survive whatever life presents, but who transforms whatever life presents into stepping stones toward greater success and fulfillment.